You guys remember this ad that Nick and I did talking about something coming?
What's the matter? Oh.
Well, we finally got it. This is new Corsair Link stuff that was kind of debuted over at Computex. We finally get our hands on it. This should hopefully be something to look forward to where we finally solve the problem of a complete rat's nest of cables when it comes to Corsair products. So Corsair actually came to my studio about 2 months ago and showed us some of the early dev engineering samples of the new Corsair Link product line. Now here's one of the inherent problems when it comes to RGB and fans and devices and stuff. ARGB, or addressable RGB, it's a 5-volt system. So standard RGB, which was non-addressable, what addressable means is there's a little control board, really tiny control board built into the device, and each LED could be individually controlled. And that's how you get those wave patterns happening and the blinky lights and stuff, whereas if you had just a standard 12-volt RGB strip, the entire strip would do the same thing. There would be no kind of variance along the strip. So addressable just means you can address each light separately. Those are 5-volt systems. Now the problem when it comes to daisy chaining, and daisy chaining is nothing new whatsoever. Daisy chaining RGB through 5-volt has a limitation on how far down the line that 5 volts will travel before it no longer is enough power to power all of the LEDs. I want to say it's something like 160 LEDs. I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I looked at that number, but it's around that number, which means you start having 3 fans on the top and 3 fans on the bottom, and then you've got your RGB strip, maybe that's daisy chained in some way. You can easily, especially with how many lights are in the latest fans and stuff, you've got your hub lighting, you've got your ring lighting, you can run out of LEDs really quick. And they've really started, especially with the Capellix LEDs and how bright they are from Corsair, you start to add more and more LEDs, that way you get less individual hot spots, so you get a nice gradient in there. You run out of lighting real quick. The other problem is you would have an individual cable for data and an individual cable for lighting. So you would have fan wires, and then you would have your data wires when it comes to anything that's smart and could be controlled. And by smart, I mean water pumps, fan controllers, PWM, all that sort of stuff. So Corsair, with the Link system, has basically come up with what they believe to be a fix. And this is the first time we're gonna get our hands on it and get to play around with it, and we're gonna show you basically what they came up with. So as you can see, Corsair has really kind of come out with a new ecosystem. I love their internal code name for this. It was actually referred to as French Toast. And that's how they referred to it when they talked to us. It was French Toast. And then these new connectors they came up with, although they kind of look like, it's just a big square connector. Not like a USB, not like USB-C, but it's a reversible square connector. They referred to this as the biscuit connector. And I was like, who was hungry when they designed all this? Because you got French toast and biscuits. But anyway, they've got 90-degree adapters, as you can see right here. They've got straight plugs, as you can see right here. They've got different lengths. They got 600 mil, 200 mil. Here's a 600 mil Y splitter. Here is the connector, which is designed to basically allow the fans to click together, because if you have fans next to each other, like on a radiator, in this case here, they have a AIO they sent us too, which is utilizing all of the new Link stuff. If the fans are next to each other, you don't have room for a cable. So basically it's just like a male-male connector that the fans will connect together with, and it's all magnetic, which is really nice. So anyway, here are the fans. They're calling them the QX120 RGB. They're pretty neat because, as I talked about the amount of LEDs, you got hub LEDs, you got ring LEDs, you have edge light LEDs. And because of the fact that this is a 12-volt lighting system, means you can carry that signal way down the line and not have to run out of voltage. They also carry data through these cables. So the data is what smart communicates between the devices, and the devices can now tell IQ, this is what I am. Because the problem with the previous Corsair lighting stuff was you had a lot of different versions of the fans. You had the RGB fans that came with the case. You had the RGB fans you could buy, and then you had different series of those. If you bought one of their cases, like their, let's say 5000X or whatever, the RGB edition that came with the RGB fans, they were not the same fans that you would get if you bought their RGB fans independently. So we had hooked basically one of the Commander Pros into the system, and all the fans that we got independent that hooked into the Commander Pro worked fine, but the fans that were on the case would not work in the Commander Pro. And then we even had confirmation that, yeah, you had to use the different controller that came with the case fans. So I had a Commander Pro and a different controller in there that IQ was able to talk to and say, this controller does this and this controller does this, but why have like a split system? The ecosystem just fell apart as the product stack grew bigger and bigger. But these now can intelligently talk to the system hub and say, this is what I am, and guess what? You can have different kinds of linked products connected, and the hub will know what they are because it carries the data across the line. So it'd be like, I've got 5 of the QL fans, I've got a system hub, I've got a water block, I've got a reservoir, a GPU block, because here's the thing, all of the HydroX stuff is also gonna be using iLink, or I keep calling it iLink, using Link. So we're gonna start with the hub. It even says right on here that it supports 14 devices. What's a device? Well, that's gonna be a fan, a water pump, a water block, or whatever. Yeah, so it's auto setup. What that means is, like I said, because of smart data connection through the cable, IQ will know exactly what it is because it's gonna tell IQ what it is. So setup should be super easy. Easy sync, I guess we'll see what that means when we fire it up right now. But the system hub, and you can have more than one system hub in there, by the way, if for some reason you have more than 14 devices. But my biggest concern was like, okay, the Commander Pro was huge, right? Trying to fit that thing was a pain in the butt. Wait until you see this. You guys have probably already seen this at Computex. This is the controller.
I haven't seen it, what?
That's right, you weren't here that day. So it is a micro USB connection. We also have one end of the cable that plugs in there. Actually, this is where the biscuit connector plugs into. You can link controllers together, by the way, as well, if you need more than one controller. So that's the controller. Actually, look at where it gets power from. A 6-pin PCI Express. Remember, it's running 12 volts. This is just one of the really short, like, biscuit connectors used to like daisy chain something to it. You know, there's a short cable right there, and then we get these cables, or this cable right here, which is a 600 millimeter. Is it 600 millimeter? Yeah, that's definitely more than 100 millimeters. So there's the connector for it right there. Now you see how there's one on that side and one on that side? Because you can daisy chain right through the connector if you needed to, but it just plugs in. More solid than the 12 volt high power connector, that's for sure. Infinite power! Okay, all right, whatever. For today's video, we're gonna be installing all this in a case, an empty case. And the reason why I'm using an empty case is I want the only cables to be in there to be this ecosystem so that you guys can see just how low profile it is and easy it is to maintenance, unplugging and changing things around if you need to, and then we'll control it with our laptop. So anyway, there's the controller right there. That is usually the part I hate the most because I have never, ever liked the Commander Pro. I have been probably one of their loudest critics when it comes to the Commander Pro. But anyway, let's take a look at what you get with the individual fans, because you have a 3-pack and an individual. Wow, this is like Easy J unboxing fan, look at that.
Whoa.
That's probably a little overbuilt for a box, in my opinion. Check this out. Do you see how there's a connector on one side and then kind of like a dummy plug on the other? Now on this side, you can see how you just have the two, like this is one of the, I don't want to take it out right now, it is magnetic in there, but that's where the two fans would just ka-chunk together, if you will. And then in here, this is one of the little cubbies where we just have our, whatchamacallit. So one thing to keep in mind, you buy an individual fan like this, you don't get a cable with it. But you noticed how we did get a cable with the controller, and you have to have the controller anyway. Now, obviously they will sell these in kits, right? You don't have to necessarily buy everything individual, but if you're not paying attention and you buy just these and you don't have a controller, then that'll be a problem. Because even the single fans that you got from Corsair in the past came with a fan header cable and a RGB cable. These, as you can see, do not. They just come with the plugs sitting in there waiting for something to plug into it. So keep that in mind. But if we take a look at the 3-fan kit, this gives you 3 fans that are pre-connected, by the way. But look how easy, because they're magnetic, like, and they're solid, I don't know how else to put it. As you can see, it comes with everything that was in the hub kit, already in the 3-fan kit. And then you can daisy chain the individual fans if you needed more for like a rear exhaust or something, then this will just connect to the cables that are already here. And you can get the individual cables if you already need them too, which is nice. And the 90-degree plug is nice because at the end of the fan, instead of having it stick out, you just have it 90 degree whichever direction you need it to go. Because it's reversible, it's always gonna go the right direction. It's not like you have to switch to the other side or flip the whole thing around like some other brands that we've been known to use. I think what I'm gonna do, like I said, is I'm gonna go ahead and get this all installed in an empty case so that you guys can see what this ends up looking like when it's working and how simplified the nightmare has become. So here are the 3 top fans installed. Here's the craziest part. Phil had a hard time even finding the cable that I used. So we'll have to show you some close-ups here because you're not gonna see it with that camera at that angle that he's at. I use a 90-degree 600mm cable that comes off this end of the fan. So I have it going in right here to these 3 fans, following basically just the exact same cable route that the case wires do for like the power button and all that sort of stuff. They run right down here through the cable channel with everything else. And as you can see, I have it looping back into the hub. And then I need to peel this off though. It is magnetic, by the way, I want to point that out. There is no double-sided tape. I wish they had given some with it. We got our 6-pin PCI Express plug right there, going right to the power supply. And then this is just this is not the same cable it came with because they had the one that goes to the motherboard. It would go up through there. I'm just using one that goes to a standard USB-A. That way I can plug this into the laptop so we can control the devices. But check that out. These 3 fans are now plugged in with just this. In the current ecosystem, that would have been 3 fan, 4-pin PWM fan header wires, 3 more RGB wires, then the commander core, and the commander core had multiple wires coming off of it. Like they had a SATA plug, sometimes 2, depending on which one you have. Then it would have the RGB controller coming off of that, which was a small box. Usually I would tape it to the top of it. That had another SATA power cable going to it, plus the data cable going to USB, and the commander core had a data cable going to USB. So you were talking like 10 cables, at least 10 cables for 3 fans. So you guys might notice I don't have 3 in the front right now, because what I want to sort of demonstrate is, and I wish they had given me 3 individual fans, they only gave me 2. So what I would have done, had this been the 3 in the front and then 3 on the top, instead of having that cable go in here, I would have it go into the bottom of the 3 front fans, 1, 2, 3, the 100mm link cable to go between those 3 into here on this side, and then out there into the rear fan. So you'd have 1 input to connect all of these. Now, even if we were talking like some of the competitors, I'm just gonna throw it out there. If we're talking like Lee & Lee's system, they're max 4 fan per channel. So this one right here, having 14 devices in a serial link, whether it be fans or a Hydro X like water block with an LCD screen or whatever, it's just a device. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna show you how easy it is to add, say, the rear exhaust fan. And we're gonna do this live. Or do it live, because I want you guys to see just how easy this is. Now, this was initially sitting in right here in this particular plug, and I just want to show that how this came pre-installed like that. These do come out if you need to take these out for whatever, because you have one there and you have one there. And I want to just really be clear on this. Either of these can be input or output. It's not like back in the day where one was an input and one was an output and the flow only went one direction. This allows you to have flexibility on which way you want to mount the fan and not have to worry about the cable. So I am going to leave this top fan plugged in. No, I'm not. I'm going to show you how easy it is to remove 1 fan from the setup. So if I come in here and I just remove the 2 screws on the end I have holding it. So because all 3 fans are connected, I just have 2 screws on the ends and then 2 in the middle so it doesn't sag. And that's it. It is secure. So I don't have to have, 16 screws. I just have 6. So if I undo that one and I undo this one, you'll notice it sags a little bit, but it doesn't fall off. I can now just slide it out, take my straight plug here, like this. Now I do wish they had double 90s on each end. Maybe they do, but none of the cables they provided us have a 90 on each end. That would have been nice just for clearance issues. A 90 and a 90 would have been great. But as you'll see, I still am able to make this work, no problem whatsoever with that plug. So that's plugged back in. I'm gonna put my 2 screws, and I love the fact that this is all gonna be 1 cut, no edits, that way you guys can see. Do you know how much work this would have been to add a fan to the current system that Corsair has? It would have been a nightmare, because you'd have to run those cables to the controller. There was no daisy chaining at all, in any way, shape, or form. So that's now plugged in there. I don't have, where the heck did I do with my screws? Okay, so part of this time now is gonna be Jay looking for his screws, which is obviously gonna skew the timing of this. But I think that's important because, there we go. Having this one take definitely shows you how easy the system is. And this is why I was so excited about this when they showed it to us months ago. So I'm now gonna take this 90 and I want this to be an exhaust. So I have the fan cage going that way. But I feel like with the cable going back in like that will be the cleanest. So there's my 90 plugged into the fan. Just sort of let that sit there for a sec. Line up my fan holes. I'm only gonna put 2 screws in here again because that's kind of all I need. There's something magnetic, by the way. I'm feeling it like magnetize itself to the case. I'm not sure what in the fan is magnetic, but something is. Obviously, because remember they magnet connect to each other. All right, so if I slide this up a little bit, I think right about there is where I want it. That fan is now installed and connected and RGB'd and powered and ready to go. Now I need to turn it on, hook it up to the laptop so we can take a look at the new iCUE and show you guys how easy the setup is. So I have it basically just jumpered through the power supply plugged in and on. That's why we're seeing the pastel colors. Like by default, this is what the iCUE / like the Link stuff shows up as. All the Corsair RGB stuff shows up as this pastel colors. Very low RPM, as you can hear. It's just defaulting to whatever the controller is giving it for power. I haven't installed iCUE yet. So I'm installing iCUE on my laptop and it's connected through right here, but basically you just imagine this is your desktop, it'd be the exact same experience. We have not run the setup or anything yet because of the fact that I want to take you guys along for the ride of what the setup looks like. So clearly it saw something. Anyway, system sensors to display. Oh, one thing I forgot to point out when we talk about sensors. On the hub, there is a single 2-pin temperature probe plug, which allows you to put that temperature probe wherever you want. You could run it into your graphics card somewhere, you can have it next to your CPU block, just use it as a case airflow temperature, and you can start using that as a trigger for speeding up and slowing down your fans or your water pumps or whatever. So it seamlessly integrates into iCUE as another source of input to use for controlling your temps. Anyway, it says new device connected. Check this out. iCUE now only downloads what you need to specific modules for your Link System Hub. QX RGB has been downloaded. So it recognizes these are the QX fans, and it's just now going to, it's already downloaded it. I just need to restart. Remember how it said auto on the box? I'm really testing auto because as much as I love Corsair, we have had a lot of iCUE problems in the past, and I've been very complaining about it. So now you can see on here, it sees our fans. They're showing up. They're on here, even a picture of it. You even see our hub, but now there's another update available. So we're gonna update that. Okay, so once it updated the hub firmware, you can see now QX RGB fan is showing up. If we had any of the other new Link devices, they would also show up independently as well. Now, one of those devices, like I've said it a bunch of times, that they're AIOs obviously will show up. The pump will show up. The pump header will show up. And in the AIO, here's the cool part. It has a hub built into the radiator to connect the fans to. Phil's just has called it now the biscuit hub. He's calling it all biscuit from now on, which I think we should. But the wire for the pump controller, the pump power, the pump RGB, all runs through the tubing, like under the sleeve, so you don't see any of those cables. But the control for the pump and all that now is going to that hub. One plug from the hub of the AIO to the controller and then to your system. So no longer do you have to run those cables around your CPU block and all that to try and look neat. It's gonna be the cleanest installs possible. All right, so we're gonna run the wizard here. Here are your Link System ports. We already know that. Auto detection, iCUE Link ecosystem parts detected. So now we need to say number 1 fan, and I'm just gonna call number 1 the green one up front. So that'll be number 1. And then we've got, what is that, red, and then we got blue and yellow. So you can see I just rearranged it here. So we have some quick lighting features we can do. So here's liquid. You can see that just sort of like automatically did that. Interstellar was always kind of neat. It's very spacey themed, if you will. Abstract, I like abstract because it's got that kind of a vaporwave look to it. And you see how it shows each fan individually. mean, they're gonna get a lot louder now because I have them going full blast. But for the hub design, the blade design, the bearing type, it's all basically the same as like all the RGB fans they have out now. They just have completely changed the way that they connect to each other, which is nice. So what we're gonna do right now is we are going to plug in the AIO to the existing system here. I wanna point out, they give you double 90 in the AIO, so clearly this cable exists, and that's gonna be for plugging into our fans right here. We'll just go like this with it for now. I think that being a straight one would be better. Realistically, you would have like these 3 fans in the front, I guess, and then you have the AIO up top, but we're just gonna leave it outside the case for an example here. They give you a double 90. They do give you a double 90 with the AIO. I didn't get one with the cable kit, which would have been nice. Check this out. They give you these pull tabs, which certainly make it easier to unplug these, as long as you put them on the right side. Whatever, that one I didn't put on the right side, but they give you these, which make it very easy to unplug. There's a USB-C right here. I'm not sure why, to be honest, because everything else that comes with it is exactly the same as what you would get with the 3-fan kit. You get the hub, you get the 6-pin PCI Express power cable, you get the USB 3.0 or 2.0 to micro USB for plugging into your motherboard. I don't know what the USB-C is for. I could probably look at the manual, but I'm not gonna do that right now. But they also give you, as you can see here, the temperature probe wire, as I told you. But because I already have this in here and I have this ecosystem, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna daisy chain it off the end of this fan, but typically you would have the fans before this in whatever order makes sense. But the cool thing about it carrying data, you can wire it in whatever order makes sense for your build. You're not stuck having to go like straight down the line if you don't want to. So I'm gonna plug this 90-degree, just for the sake of this video, right into the bottom of this fan. So I'm gonna plug my fans back in. I'll just go this way with it. No, I'll go this way with the cable. A little bit longer than we need, but that's still cleaner than a lot of options out there. And then I'll plug the input. Doesn't matter which one you go into. There we go.
Oh, one fan's not on.
Oh, it gave me an alert. Hold on. Port 2 sensor was triggered. Devices connected to the ports operate in the low power mode. Please reduce the number of connected devices for proper installation. All right, so let's experiment now. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. Close IQ, I'm gonna turn this off. I wanna see if this makes a difference now. Coming off of the hub on the other side instead of through all those other devices.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so word to the wise. Have the AIO with the pump coming off its own port off of the hub, which they give you 2 ports. So we can have a lighting one, and then obviously, and I think honestly, it has to do with the amount of power that the CPU block / pump is gonna take. And then check it out. Link H150i RGB is showing up. Oh yeah, check that out. They're completely separate. That is so cool. So now you can see I linked everything to yellow. I can individually change the colors on items if I wanted. Like for instance, I could see how I undid the yellow from the block. So now the block's back to the kind of vaporwave that we had, the abstract they call it. We can go interstellar on like everything. We can add the block back and it will cover it. It's so cool. There has never been an easier way to like extend your products, and all you need is a cable like this to just keep it on going down the line. We did learn that the AIO should be on its own line and not necessarily daisy chained through. And I'm assuming that's simply because of the amount of power that the pump needs. But what I love is that IQ told you specifically, like, hey, these are now in low power mode because of the fact that there's too many devices connected to that one line. I feel like if there were a way to unplug the block from this, the light would have worked. But anyway, this is something that I really wish was out when I did my build. Maybe I can find a way to utilize this somehow in the warships build that I'm doing. But if you guys have been looking for an RGB implementation that is not, it just doesn't look like this, then you owe it to yourself to at least consider this. So what does it all cost? Well, it's not cheap. This is probably not cheap to manufacture either. But for those that are looking for a premium product, it kind of comes with a little bit of a premium price. So the H150i, which is basically the same name as the previous one, so you're gonna have to keep in mind that if you're looking it up online, make sure it's the new Link version. It is $239.99. $240 for a 360 AIO. So that's fairly expensive, but consider the fact that it does also now get you into the new ecosystem because it comes with the hub. It comes with the connector cable. It comes with the 6-pin PCI Express power for the hub. And that hub can also daisy chain into other products. So you can add more fans off of this by just plugging into the fan on the end right here with the rear fan if you wanted or whatever, which means you could then get the expansion fan, which is just the fan, they call it the expansion kit. Maybe that doesn't come with any cables or anything. That's a $50 fan. Remember, $30 fans were really hard to swallow, but 50 bucks, so that's expensive. It is expensive. There's no getting around that. If you're not gonna go with the AIO and you just want the fans and stuff, you can get the 3-fan kit for $160. So what that essentially means is you get 3 of those $50 fans, and then for 10 bucks you get the hub and the cable and the power and all that sort of stuff. So the initial buy-in cost is gonna be expensive. You can easily now spend $500 or more on outfitting your case with custom fans and stuff. I think Corsair knows exactly who they're targeting with this product. They're targeting the people that want RGB, they want the smart control of being able to have their fans ramp up and slow down with load and temperatures and all the custom lighting effects, but have it be clean. I know of people in my circle that would eat this up, and I'm one of those people because I like RGB, I like the flexibility of the colors and stuff, but I hated with an absolute capital H underscored 3 times Corsair's current wiring system. They've been a sponsor of ours for a long time and I have been nothing but critical of it. This was the response, and I like the direction this is going. Just premium price for a premium product. So sound off down below if you guys are sold on this. I love the way the ecosystem works and the simplicity of it all just working. And I know Corsair has spent a lot of time kind of perfecting this. And I see their passion in building it. It's just we'd all love it to be 10 bucks. You know, we'd all love it to be 10 bucks. I think we'd all love it to be half the price that it currently is, but this has got to be expensive to manufacture. I have no idea what it would cost. I mean, these are all bespoke. There's no other OEM, ODM making this in some way that they've just incorporated into this design. It's all made for this. So that's where the manufacturing cost gets expensive. Hopefully over time it can maybe get cheaper. It probably will, but for now, sound off down below how you guys feel about this sort of ecosystem. I think it's great, I really do. You just have to be willing to really spend the coin to get it. All right guys, thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.